Welcome back to another episode of Do No Right Sports. I am your host alone today. My name is Richie, and today I will be giving you guys my top four, call it five, relevant quarterback rookies for the 2021 fantasy football season. I'm just going to get right into it. Number one, we have quarterback out of Clemson, Trevor Lawrence. He was the number one overall pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not much to say about him other than he does everything really well as a quarterback, and that kind of puts him in a tier that's above everyone else. Everyone else has a little bit of flaws that need to be ironed out before they can call themselves like very solid prospects, while Trevor Lawrence, he's already that solid guy. He's pretty comparable to Andrew Luck when he came out. Just very all-around solid quarterback. Unfortunately, I can't say the same about the team that is inheriting him. Starting with the Jaguars offensive line, which ranked 22nd according to Pro Football Focus at the end of last season, so the 2020 season. They have some guys there that I think can compete. They have Cam Robinson at left tackle, Andrew Norwell, who they signed from Carolina a few years back, Brandon Linder, who is their center, a very solid center, AJ Cann, who is just a body, I would say, at right guard, and they have Juwan Taylor at right guard. Just by looking at some of the names, you can see the reason why they were ranked 22nd. However, they did add a tackle in the draft, Walker Little, in the second round, so he should help with tackle depth right away. I don't think Cam Robinson's contract is active for too much longer, so they probably won't re-sign him if they have Walker Little on the team and he shows promise. But under a new head coach, a new scheme, Jacksonville won't be tanking hopefully this year. I could see this rank going up just a little bit. Maybe they can get to about middle of the pack in terms of offensive lines. Now, if you go to weapons, they're returning DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, and James Robinson, who are solid players in themselves, especially DJ Chark, who other host, Dan, who is very high on him. And we both love James Robinson, who was a very solid running back. Jacksonville got him for cheap. I believe he might have been a free agent rookie last year. And some additions that they gave or got for Lawrence were Marvin Jones, wide receiver out of Detroit, Chris Manhertz, tight end from Carolina, and they got Travis Etienne with the 25th pick in the first round of the draft. I think Etienne was kind of a panic pick, maybe more of a luxury pick. They didn't need another running back. They had Robinson, so I don't really love the selection, but in terms of fantasy, he will be there, and they said they're going to try to use him as like a versatile player, like a Percy Harvin almost. So that could be good for Etienne. Maybe even that'll help Robinson get some more snaps. But in terms of helping Trevor Lawrence, I think having all those pieces does help him. My one question mark for this team is going to be inexperience. And that's for all parts of the team. That includes the head coach, the quarterback, both of them, because Lawrence is still a rookie after all. He's very good, but of course rookies have their growing pains. And then same with Urban Meyer, who's hasn't coached in a few years. He's only coached at the collegiate level, so we're going to see how the transition treats him, hopefully well, because I think this team could be very solid in a now weak-ish AFC South division. So I got Trevor Lawrence as my number one QB, fantasy QB for rookies. Now number two, this might be a little controversial. I have Justin Fields, quarterback out of Ohio State. He is now on the Chicago Bears, who traded up with the New York Giants to draft him number 11 overall. He, along with Lawrence, is a very solid prospect as well. He's pretty good at all parts of the game as quarterback. There are some questions about some traits he might have, negative traits, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But again, very solid quarterback. I had him as my quarterback too. A lot of people had Zach Wilson out of BYU as their quarterback too. But I think it's more because the Jets fell in love with Wilson rather than Justin Fields' actual ability. But we'll go back to NFL now, and we'll talk about the teams. So we'll start with the Bears O-line, which ranked 20th at the end of last season according to PFF. They have some solid starters. I know they lost their tackles, so their tackles are a little weak, but they still have Cody Whitehair, who's a very solid center, James Daniels and Jermaine Fetty, who are, again, I'll call them bodies. They're very average, below average guards, which could hurt this offense a little bit. But as far as additions go, they added Tevin Jenkins in the top of the second round, who, according to many, had a first-round value. So I think that was a very good pick from the Bears, especially the first 2 rounds were very solid in the draft. Props to the GM, I believe, is Ryan Pace. And then they have Elijah Wilkinson, who's the right tackle, which is, in my opinion, their biggest question mark. We'll see what happens. We'll see how he can hold up and how that whole line holds up. But they did add 2 more players in the draft and in undrafted free agency. So we'll see what happens there. But this old line is pretty solid. Hopefully they can give some time to Fields and don't kill him right away. As far as the weapons go, they're returning Allen Robinson, who's a stud wide receiver on the franchise tag. They have Darnell Mooney, Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet, David Montgomery, and Tariq Cohen coming back from injury. Again, very solid weapons. I know Jimmy Graham's a little old at this point, but if Cole Kmet can take the step up and develop as the tight end that they drafted him to be, I think that's a very solid offense. I also didn't mention they still have Anthony Miller, and they now to the additions they added Jameer Byrd, who I didn't feel like adding because I don't think they're that much of game changers. I do personally like Anthony Miller, but we'll see what happens with the quarterback position. And they also added Damian Williams from the Chiefs, who sat the year out because of COVID. Now he's back. And 2 years ago, he was very close to being Super Bowl MVP. Lost it to Mahomes, who had a very solid postseason run and a season overall. But so I think he could kind of fill in what they're missing from Cordell Patterson, not in terms of special teams, but in terms of running back and just getting some carries and getting in there, being a little bit of a spell back, I would say, because he can kind of do it all. He can catch, he can run. Unfortunately, though, no team is perfect. And my biggest question mark for this team, or more specifically for Justin Fields, is going to be playing time, because the Bears did come out and already say that they had Andy Dalton as their quarterback 1. So we'll see if Fields can beat him out in practice and training camp prior to the season starting. I don't think so. I think they'll wait. They'll be patient with him. But at the same time, Coach Nagy and GM Pace are on the hot seat, and they might start Fields earlier than later. So we'll see what happens. And also, like I touched on before, a few reports came out about Justin Fields, about some potential negative traits, like not the hardest worker. He's not in the first in, last out mentality. Also, there were some medical red flags for him, so we'll see what happens with that. I didn't see it. When I looked at him, he kind of seemed like a quarterback that watched film, kind of knew what he was doing before like each game and before each play. So I like him here as number 2. I thought him falling to 11 was actually good for him because he's going to join a very solid team with a decent defense. So I have Justin Fields as my number 2 quarterback. Now for number 3, I have quarterback out of North Dakota State, Trey Lance, who is now on the Niners, who traded up from number 12 to number 3 to select him. In my opinion, Trey Lance could have the highest ceiling out of any quarterback from the 2021 draft, and that includes Trevor Lawrence. I think they're neck and neck in terms of, ceiling, I'll call it. But I love Lance. I love his ability. Again, I can talk later about his question marks, but as far as the athletic, he's got the athletic ability. He's got the arm. He called his own protections at North Dakota State. So I think that already gives him a step up from the other quarterbacks that are going to be in this draft, his fellow draftees. And he went to the team with the best head coach, at least out of this list that I have here. Their offensive line last year for the San Francisco 49ers, their offensive line was ranked 9th, which is by far the best out of any other team that I have here. And to make matters better for Lance, they signed Alex Mack from the Atlanta Falcons this year. They re-signed Trent Williams, and they picked a guard, Aaron Banks, in the second round. So I think they really did a good job focusing on their offensive line, solidifying it. They still have Mike McGlinchey, Laken Tomlinson, Justin School. They are the starting guards at the moment, but they still have some good depth in Tom Compton and Weston Richburg, at least in my opinion, that can come in and get playing time if need be. Now, if you go to weapons, no short of weapons on the Niners offense. They still have Deebo Samuel. They have Brandon Ayuk, who will be going into his second year. George Kittle, who will be coming back from injury. He is a top 2 tight end, maybe even top 1 tight end, best tight end in football if completely healthy. They have Raheem Mostert, who can't seem to stay healthy, but we'll see. He's got top 5 breakaway speed in the NFL. Might be the best breakaway running back in the NFL. You could definitely make an argument for that. And they also have Kyle Juszczyk, who former Raven, very versatile fullback in a dying position. He seems to still make himself relevant, which kind of just shows the type of player that he is. He can do everything, catch, block, whatever you need him to do, run the ball. He's got you. In addition to that, they added a few pieces, nothing game-changing in my opinion. They added Mohamed Sanu from Detroit. He's been around a few teams for the past few years, but I think as a wide receiver 3, maybe 4 on a team, I think he could be very solid, especially as a veteran who can come in and maybe help the younglings or even come in and just make crucial third down catches with route running and smarts in the league from being so experienced. Also, they added Wayne Gallman, who, as a Giants fan, I'm really gonna miss seeing him gone. I think he was a very solid running back. The only problem is he probably won't get much playing time unless it's maybe at the goal line, I would say, unless there are a few injuries ahead of him. But I think he's very solid. Probably not a key addition, I'll call it, but an addition nonetheless. And they also picked Trey Sermon, who was is a running back from the draft in the 3rd round. Again, crowded backfield, I'll call it. But I think this team thrives on multiple running backs and not giving any singular person a ton of carries and kind of just spreading out the load and keeping everyone fresh. Shanahan is a master at the zone run blocking scheme, so his running backs always seem to do really well. So I think that's going to help Lance long term with all these weapons, with a very solid offensive line that, in my opinion, got better. I think that's going to really help him develop and become a good quarterback with a very high ceiling. The only question marks I have are playing time. They're probably going to start Garoppolo over him for a little bit, so we'll see what happens there. Maybe they trade Garoppolo, maybe they release him before the season starts, if they like what Lance is doing, but for now he is the quarterback number 2 in the depth chart. And mechanics, he tends to overstride on intermediate and deep throws, specifically deep throws, which causes him to be a little errant with the ball and misses receivers. If he can fix those mechanics, which I definitely believe in the 49ers coaching staff, he will be lethal. He'll be an offensive weapon for this team, not even just for throwing on the ground as well. He's got some legs, he can move a little bit. I think he'll open up this playbook and he'll be dynamic. But as far as rookies go, he's my 3rd because of potential starting problems, lack of playing time, and his mechanics. He might not get a lot of time, and he might still be kind of raw. But that'll take me to my quarterback 4, who I wasn't even going to actually have on this list because I'm just not so confident with him. But as you'll see with my number 5 guy, I had to have Zach Wilson on this list from BYU. He's now on the New York Jets. He's the 2nd overall quarterback, and for good reason. He's very solid. He actually kind of reminds me of the guy that just traded to Carolina, Mr. Sam Darnold. They can both make off-platform throws. They're not the biggest guys, but you know what? They have decent size to them. Maneuverability. Seem to be pretty smart. The only thing I would say is this was probably the best move for the team because Darnold has been, I'll say, scarred by the Jets and Adam Gase. So get a new guy in, new rookie deal. Got a 2nd round pick next year from Carolina, so I think they made out fairly decently. But in terms of the Jets, they are not decent. There's a reason why they had the second overall pick. Their offensive line, according to PFF, was ranked 29th last year, I think the last year. And I mean, if you just look at some of the players on the line, you can see why. Very hit or miss offensive line. I don't really see too many standout names here. No Connor McGovern, Mekhi Becton from last year at least. George Fant stands out. Other than that, not really sure about any of these names, but they did pick up Elijah Vera Tucker in the first round, traded up for him. He was, in terms of like guard prospects, he was the number one guard. I thought that was a very good pick for the Jets. They also signed Dan Feeney from the Chargers. So I think he can come in and be if nothing else, just like a body at the guard position. I think he can compete, keep the competition close, and I think a little bit of competition will be good for this offensive line, and that'll help Zach Wilson out long term. In terms of weapons, returning from last year, they have Denzel Mims, who will go into his second year, Jameson Crowder, who had a really good connection with Sam Darnold. We'll see if he can keep that connection with Zach Wilson. I have a sneaking suspicion Crowder won't be here for too much longer. They also have Chris Herndon and Ryan Griffin, two tight ends, who have been underwhelming. I know Griffin had a good year 2 years ago. Herndon had the potential to have a good year 3 years ago. Neither of them last year performed very well at all. I think Griffin might have been injured. I'm not sure if both were, but it's less about the weapons that they had and now that they have. They have Corey Davis, who they signed from Tennessee. They have Keelan Cole, who they signed from Jacksonville. They have Elijah Moore, who wide receiver from Ole Miss that they picked at the top of the second round. They have Tevin Coleman, running back, who they signed from the 49ers. And they have Michael Carter, running back from UNC. He was part of that two-headed monster running back group with Javonte Williams. And they got a steal with Carter, in my opinion, because picking him at the top of the fourth round for running back but could potentially be top in the class, I think that was a great pick. It's going to be fun to see this team and how they grow, especially under a new head coach. But I think with all those weapons, I think it's going to be good for Zach Wilson. Unfortunately, I don't see a true number one receiver for this team, and the offensive line is very, very bad. At least it was last year, so we got to hope that their new additions and their rookies can come in and actually change the offense and make it easier for Zach Wilson. But I will say, though, my number one question mark for this team is coaching. I'm just not sure what I'm getting from Saleh yet. Obviously, people like him. He seems to be a player guy, very smart on the defensive side of the ball, which could mean this offense could be very boring, running the ball, keeping the game close. They had a few nice off-season acquisitions. They had a few very nice off-season acquisitions in free agency, starting with Carl Lawson and a few others. They're still weak in cornerback, but regardless, I like this team. Another thing that I do worry about a little bit is dysfunction, because I know the Jets have not been the best organization as of late. I like Joe Douglas. I think he makes correct moves. They still had a few issues with Adam Gase, but now that he's out of the building, probably won't see too many mistakes that way. So hopefully Saleh and Joe Douglas can, work together and turn the Jets around. Because I think when New York football in general, not just the Jets but the Giants as well, when New York football is good, football is just better. So I like Zach Wilson as a number 4 quarterback. Again, not expecting a ton from him. I wasn't even going to add him to the list, but I had to add him because for my number 5 quarterback, I have Davis Mills, who is the quarterback at Stanford, and he went to Houston. The only reason why I have him on this list is because of Deshaun Watson's scandal. The fact that he might not play football for next year or maybe even ever again, let alone for the Houston Texans, who he's said on multiple occasions he does not want to play for. So Mills was a top of the 3rd round pick, and he's not going to have much help, if at all, to succeed on the Texans. Their offensive line ranked 23rd last year, according to PFF. And if you just take a look, they don't really have too many guys here. They have Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard at left and right tackle, respectively. So again, not bad tackles for this team. But then you have to go inside the offensive line and go to the interior positions and see where it's kind of struggling a little bit. They did sign Marcus Cannon from New England, who actually was a tackle for them. I guess they're sliding him inside to guard here. And they signed Lane Taylor from Green Bay, who actually I think could be pretty solid. So I think the only really question here is center, but they do, I see, have Justin Britt, who, if that's the same Justin Britt that I'm thinking of from Seattle, I think he could be a very solid center. So we'll see what happens with the Texans. I don't see much from this team still, but I think their O-line could be like middle of the pack at best. Now, if you go to weapons, they're returning Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, Kiki Kuti, Jordan Atkins, and David Johnson. Not the greatest. I actually kind of feel bad for Brandon Cooks, and I feel bad for all of them, but Cooks especially, because I think he signed with this team. He was traded to this team. But regardless, he was traded to this team thinking, hey, I'm going to be working with Deshaun Watson. And actually, same with Randall Cobb. Hey, I'm going to be working with Deshaun Watson. This should be great. And now he might never play again, so that kind of sucks. But Texans also added in the offseason, they added Mark Ingram, Phillip Lindsay, so they have a very, very solid running back group. It's going to be hard for any of these guys to really get any solid carries and have any fantasy relevance, but in terms of helping out Davis Mills, I think all three could be very solid. They also drafted Nico Collins in about the middle to end of the third round, who's could come in and maybe make some noise at wide receiver. They also picked up a sleeper tight end of mine, at least Brevin Jordan, who was a tight end out of Miami, the top of the fifth. I think he could be very solid, especially because he's not going to be able to start right away. Not even be able to, but not going to have to start right away, I should say, with Jordan Atkins still on the roster. There's a few other tight ends here like Ryan Izzo, Pharaoh Brown, who could step into that starter role for a little bit, let Jordan develop. Maybe he can come in later and work in dual tight end packages, or maybe even take the tight end position for himself at the end. But again, it is the Texans we're talking about, so my biggest question mark for this team is dysfunction. Similar to the Jets, but switched. I think dysfunction is rampant throughout this whole organization. They did hire a new GM, a new head coach, so we'll see what happens there. But until I see any true changing of the tide, I do think this team is going to be in the cellar of the AFC South. And then again, coaching as my second question mark. Like I just touched on, I'm just not sure what I'm getting. They signed a wide receiver coach from the Ravens to be their head coach. I could see him more as a stopgap rather than the guy long term, because he's a little bit older. So we'll see where that goes. But maybe Davis Mills, maybe they give him a shot. That's pretty much all I have here. That's my only argument, is maybe they give him a shot. He's smart, out of Stanford, so maybe they let him play. They do have Tyrod Taylor, who could maybe see most of the snaps, and they also signed Ryan Finley from Cincinnati. So it's going to be a little bit of an uphill climb for Davis, who our lads has ranked as their QB number 3, technically QB number 4 behind Deshaun Watson. But I don't anticipate him playing this season. So those are my top 5 guys. I also have a few other quarterbacks that I have here. Mac Jones, who was the 15th pick in the first round. The only reason why I don't have him on this list is because I don't think he'll get enough playing time. I think they like Cam Newton in New England. I think they're going to really let Mac Jones develop. They're going to let him grow. Also, another big question mark, and I'm sure everyone has this, did he make Alabama or did Alabama make him? If you ask some of the guys from Alabama, some of the wide receivers like Waddle and Smith, they say they actually like Mac Jones better than Tua. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's a better quarterback. That could just be in terms of personality. So we'll see what happens. Mac Jones is pretty much a pure pocket passer, and he probably doesn't have the mobility to escape edge rushers at the next level. So that's going to hurt him a little bit. But if he can play smart and kind of be like a Drew Brees or a Tom Brady, not saying he's going to play up to that level, but if he can manipulate the pocket and study film like very, very greatly, then I think he could probably be pretty solid. Belichick is really good with the developing players and making them fit within the scheme. I also have Kyle Trask here, who was the last pick in the second round, and he went to Tampa Bay. Again, not really going to get any playing time, and he's just not ready. Straight up not ready. He's very raw out of Florida. And then Kellen Mond, who was top of the 3rd round. There was like a run on quarterbacks here. Again, went to the Vikings. Not ready. Not going to get much playing time. Maybe that's more of a long-term pick. I can definitely see that if they view that Kirk Cousins isn't going to be here or even good in the next 2-3 years. I think Kellen Mond could step in behind a good run game, behind a solid offensive line for Minnesota. But for now, as far as the 2021 season, I don't see Kellen Mond having any type of fantasy relevance. Same with the other guys on this list. But with that being said, that'll do it. Those are my top 4, 5-ish fantasy relevant rookies for quarterbacks in the 2021 NFL fantasy football season. If you guys have any of your own quarterbacks that you like, make sure to drop them down below. I'm pretty sure the list is pretty complete here, outside of maybe a few other ones like Sam Ehlinger. But again, we're only really expecting production out of like 4 of these guys, maybe 5. So thank you guys for watching DNR Sports, Do Not Write Sports. I've been Richie, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Feels right.